Warning, the following video has a crap ton of spoilers. You have been warned. I was planning on doing videos about more interesting stuff. I literally have a sticky note on my computer with potential video topics, but stuff keeps coming up that garners my attention. So, yeah, let's talk about the Season 4 animatics shown at the San Diego Comic-Con. By the way, if you look in the corner of the video, you'll see a 3-digit number that begins with a 4. These numbers tell us which episode the animatics are coming from. So, really quickly, the Scootaloo episode is episode 5, the Spike episode is episode 6, the Apple Family episode is episode 9, and the Nightmare Moon episode will be the season debut. Well, I'm hyped. Are you hyped? Because I'm hyped. Now, despite the fact that everyone was insanely hyped about the Nightmare Moon part, which we'll get to later, my favorite part of the animatic was the Scootaloo scene. First off, we're getting pretty solid verification that Scootaloo is in fact disabled, and that's pretty cool. By establishing a character with a real disability, you make that character more real. That character becomes more relatable and more fully realized, and that character becomes more tragic when you consider how much Scootaloo looks up to Rainbow Dash, knowing that she'll probably never be able to do the kinds of things that Rainbow can do. Plus, consider the fact that this will be the 70th episode in the series, and this will be the first time Scootaloo's disability will be brought up, and only because of the Hall of Fame-worthy assholes of Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. It's very telling of how tolerant this society is. So, the episode appears to be about either Scootaloo coping with a disability and learning that she can still live a rich and fulfilling life despite her disability, which would be amazing, or Scootaloo overcoming the disability, possibly with the help of Rainbow Dash, and by the end of the episode, Scootaloo would beat the odds and learn how to fly. Which would be less amazing, but it would reach Sleepless in Ponyville levels of aww. And if you listen carefully during the episode, you might be able to hear the thousands of fanfic writers deleting their Scootaloo Learns How to Fly fanfics. But that's not the only thing that got me hyped about this episode. There were some smaller things that take a little bit of analysis to get to. World-class bitch Diamond Tiara mentions that the Cutie Mark Crusaders are trying to be flag carriers representing Ponyville, and she also brought up Miss Harshwinny, which implies that they'd be carrying Ponyville's flag at the Equestria Games. That implies that unlike the Olympics, where athletes represent their country, in the Equestria Games, the athletes would represent their hometown. And let's think here. Who are the best athletes in Ponyville? If AJ and Dashie weren't the best athletes in Ponyville, do you think they'd draw as large of a crowd as they did in Fall Weather Friends during the Iron Pony competition? I mean, they wouldn't come out to see a couple of scrubs, would they? So, if a Rainbow and AJ compete at the Equestria Games story is coming, maybe they could compete against some super competitive opponent who's a little too willing to step over the line of friendly competition to win. Or, maybe all of the main 6 could compete in various events. AJ would be in some strength competition, Rainbow could be a sprinter, or whatever the flying equivalent is. Pinkie could do gymnastics, since she's proven that she has some sweet moves on a trampoline in Best Night Ever. Rarity could do something graceful. What's that one event where the person waves around that ribbon? Rhythmic gymnastics, that's it. She can do that. Twilight and Fluttershy, however, are a little harder to pin down events for. Maybe Twilight could take on a larger role in organizing the event and making sure it runs smoothly. As for Fluttershy, I got nothing. You guys can probably think of an event. Send ideas to the comments. Next, there's the superhero episode where Spike wakes up in a huge city and sees the main 6 in superhero costumes under the name The Power Ponies. Unfortunately, I couldn't make out their individual names. The audio quality is pretty echoey, and it's pretty hard to hear over the roaring crowd. Now, this pretty much has to be a dream sequence from Spike. I can't really see a scenario where the ponies would take on superhero personas again, but if they are trying to make up for one of the contenders for worst episode in the series, Mysterious Mare-Do-Well, well, they certainly won't get any grief from me about it. Also, the city of Metropolis kind of throws another monkey wrench into the how technologically advanced is Equestria discussion, which I'm planning on doing a video about, but I'm not looking forward to it because the whole concept is simply maddening. Although I should note that there are still horse-drawn carriages on the streets, so maybe it's not that much more advanced than we previously thought. Then there's the villain, who looks like the offspring between Dr. Octavius from Spider-Man and Sedusa from the Powerpuff Girls. And I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say that the villain will be voiced by Tabitha St. Germain. I mean, just listen to that cackle. It's Tabitha St. Germain. Finally, there's the question of what their powers will be. And some are obvious. Rainbow Dash would have super speed, Twilight and possibly Rarity would have telekinesis, Applejack would have super strength, but what about the others? I've heard reality bending for Pinkie and invisibility for Fluttershy, but I've got no solid leads on the others. Again, if you have any ideas, send them to the comments. Third on the docket is the Apples to the Core song. Now first off, this seems like just as good a time as any to mention that Daniel Ingram has promised that Season 4 is going to have 15 to 20 songs. And all I have to say about this is, yes! And also that I'm glad I'm not a remixer because my job would never friggin' end. The members of the Apple family, along with Pinkie Pie, appear to be delivering apples to someone, and they're turning the whole thing into an Apple family road trip. Now, I'm apparently one of the few people who actually liked Raise This Barn, but even I can say that Apples to the Core is way better. It's bouncier, it has more energy, and it just feels more real than Raise This Barn did. I mean, how many construction workers do you know who sing on the job? Not that many. How many families do you know who sing on road trips? Lots. Also, something kind of interesting that I noticed, Granny Smith is getting more singing roles as the show goes on. In Season 1, we got nothing from her. In Season 2, she had a brief bit in the Opportunity song from Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. In Season 3, she had a larger part in Raise This Barn, but she was part of a large crowd and was hard to hear through most of the song. And now in Season 4, she'll be singing a fair amount of Apples to the Core, but instead of being in a crowd, she'll be in a quintet. And there could be more songs from her to come, since with that many songs, this might not be Granny Smith's only musical appearance. Oh, and Big Mac's mouth appears to be moving, but I can't hear him singing. I swear he and Fluttershy would get along great if they could ever hear each other. And at the end of the song, the cart breaks down and totally shatters. Maybe you shouldn't have been taking a rickety cart and bouncing up and down in it with 4 ponies riding in it. I guess that'll end up being the conflict of the episode, with the Apples and Pinkie trying to get the shipment to the destination on time even without the cart. Interesting premise. I'll buy it. And finally, there's the Nightmare Moon episode. Now, since this will be the Season 4 premiere, the Nightmare Moon transformation will probably take place at the end of the episode, with the resolution coming in the final part of the 3-parter that we were promised by Megan McCarthy that included Magical Mystery Cure. Now, seeing as how Luna mentions that there can only be one princess, which would ignore Celestia and Cadance if this were taking place in the present day, the logical answer is that Twilight is watching the events of 1,000 years ago through the eyes of Celestia. And it looks like she's being corrupted by the nightmare forces shown in the second arc of the comics. And if that's the case, then it's the first instance of something introduced in the comics making an appearance on the show. But one little plot hole that I noticed was that in the story explaining Luna's transformation in the first episode, it mentions that Luna refused to lower the moon one night to make way for the sun. But in the animatic, she raised the moon in the middle of the day, causing an eclipse. Just a small little plot hole that I noticed in an otherwise fantastic looking episode that gives us an answer to a question that we've been asking for a very long time. And by the way, I'm sure you've seen Brony Curious's video about this already, but if you haven't, watch it. It's friggin' awesome, and it involves Phoenix Wright, which means it's perfect in every way. Okay, I think I got everything out of my system about the Animatic. Maybe now I can finish my video talking about the episode Too Many Pinkie Pies and its relationship with the multiverse theory. Or maybe I could just talk about some cartoons I like. See y'all later!